Everyone thinks a cheap Amazon polisher is just a toy that will burn your paint or die after one weekend. But here is the thing. The BATOCA polisher is not the useless gimmick I expected. And it is also not the miracle tool the 5-star reviews make it sound like. I spent weeks testing this thing on real, neglected paint, and what I found flipped my opinion twice. At first I was convinced it was underpowered. Then I thought it was secretly amazing. Then I hit its hard limits. And that is exactly why this review matters. Because if you use it the wrong way, you will hate it. But if you are the right person, it might be the smartest detailing purchase you make in 2025. Before we dive into what I discovered when I actually corrected a black hood, polished headlights, and ran both batteries down to 0, quick heads up. If you are already halfway convinced and want to check the current best price, I have left a link down in the description. But stick around, because some of the trade-offs I found are not obvious from the product page at all. So why did I even bother with the BATOCA polisher? I am that person who used to spend an entire Saturday hand waxing the car, and then the sun hits the paint and all you see are swirl marks and holograms. I had tried a cheap corded rotary a few years back, nearly burned through a thin clear coat, scared myself, and shoved it in a closet. I wanted something beginner-friendly, safer, and honestly less exhausting. Corded dual-action polishers are great, but dragging a heavy cord around a driveway, trying not to smack the paint with a power brick, gets old fast. When I kept seeing this bright red cordless BATOCA kit on Amazon, 2 12-volt batteries, a 6-inch dual-action head, multiple pads, all under the price of a decent professional polish job, I was skeptical. Too many reviews sounded like bots. But the idea of a lightweight, cordless, random orbital buffer for quick weekend details, that was tempting enough for me to test it hard. First test. Full correction on a neglected black hood. Real world. Daily driver. Washed but never polished. I used a medium-cut compound with the included foam pad, speed setting 4 out of 6, working in 2 by 2 foot sections. After 3 slow passes, I stepped back expecting a subtle difference at best. But then the sun broke through and honestly, the before and after was dramatic. Around 70% of the light swirls were gone. The paint had noticeably more gloss, and because this is a dual-action random orbital, there were no scary holograms. However, here is where it gets interesting. The deeper scratches, still there. I tried bumping up to speed 6, adding a bit more pressure, and the machine started to bog down and stall on curved areas. That was my first real hint about its power ceiling. Second test, comfort and control. I ran the BATOCA for about 40 straight minutes on a silver SUV, just doing light polishing and wax application. This is where the cordless design shines. No fighting an extension cord, no wrapping around mirrors, no worrying about dragging a cable across the paint. The tool itself is light, roughly half the weight of my big corded polisher, and the rubberized grip plus the optional side handle make it very beginner-friendly. But then you start to notice the details. At higher speeds there is a noticeable vibration in the handle, and it is louder than I expected for a compact unit. It is not unbearable, but after half an hour, you do feel it in your hands and wrists. Third test, battery torture. The kit I tested comes with 2 lithium batteries, each advertised at around 2 amp-hours. I charged both fully, set the speed to 4, and timed how long each would last under actual polishing load, not just free spinning. Battery 1 tapped out at around 25 minutes of continuous panel work. Battery 2 was similar, just under 30 minutes. In practical terms, that means you can realistically correct one car panel by panel, or do a full small car light polish in one session if you swap batteries smartly. But then reality bites. If you are trying to do heavy correction on a large SUV or multiple cars in a row, you will outrun the batteries and be waiting on chargers. For a pro, that is a non-starter. For a weekend DIYer, it might be totally fine. Fourth test, versatility. I used the included pads and some of my own. For waxing with a soft finishing pad and speed 2 to 3, this thing is excellent. Effortless application, super even coverage, and the cordless nature makes roof and trunk work way less annoying. I also tried it on headlights with a more aggressive pad and compound. It removed oxidation and haziness surprisingly well, but again, took longer than my bigger corded machine. The Orbit's size and motor simply are not built for rapid, deep correction. On the flip side, that lower aggression is exactly why it is safer for beginners. You would have to work really hard, with bad technique, to damage your clear coat. Here is the revelation that surprised me most after several weekends of testing. The BATOCA Polisher is not a scammy gadget. It is a purpose-built compromise. I put in about 10 hours of real correction, waxing, and headlight work, and what stood out is how it shifts the equation from raw power to usability. Compared to my mid-range corded dual action, the BATOCA is slower at cutting defects, no question. On the same black hood, my corded machine removed about 90% of swirls in 2 passes. BATOCA needed 3 to 4. But I was far more relaxed using the BATOCA. No cord stress, lighter tool, easier to maneuver on pillars and bumpers. For a hobbyist, that user experience matters as much as shaving 10 minutes off a job. What about the too good to be true factor? The marketing wants you to think this is a pro-level solution in a cordless package. It is not. The limitations are clear. Limited runtime per battery, noticeable bogging if you push down hard, included pads that are decent but not amazing, and a motor that is tuned more for safety and control than brute force. But here is what nobody tells you. That is exactly what a lot of casual dealers actually need. If you are polishing your own car twice a year, maybe doing a friend or family member's car occasionally, you probably do not want a heavy, aggressive, noisy beast. You want something forgiving, portable, and good enough to make 80% of your paint issues disappear. Now that you know the real strength of the BATOCA polisher is convenience and beginner safety rather than raw cutting power, the decision becomes a lot clearer. If that sounds like what you need, this is one of those tools where catching it at a sale price makes it a no-brainer. I have dropped a link in the description where you can check the current deal and see if it is still under that sweet spot price before it jumps again. Bottom line, who should buy this and who should skip it? If you are a weekend warrior, new to machine polishing, tired of hand waxing, and you care more about ease of use than pro-level speed, the BATOCA polisher is absolutely worth the investment. It will safely level out most swirls, make waxing almost effortless, and the cordless freedom is something you do not appreciate until you go back to a cord. If you are a professional detailer, or you are trying to tackle severely neglected, rock-hard paint on multiple vehicles, this should be your secondary, grab-and-go tool, not your primary workhorse. In the end, the BATOCA is not the most powerful polisher on Amazon, but for the right person, it is the one that actually gets used.